we feel like we're a community where we can actually start building back things the way that they used to be.
Now, do you feel that in some ways DCF may be responsible for breaking up the homes?
Well, I think systems as a whole is responsible for breaking up the family. So if we go back historically, if we go back 40 years when these systems were created, these systems around welfare,
Section 8, housing, vouchers, okay.
Absolutely. So if we look at that, we look at a system that said to women that we can provide supports for you if there's not a man in the home. And what they actually used to do to perpetuate this was to say, if you're going to be on welfare, we're going to do home checks. And when we come inside your home, we're actually going to look in your closets, look under the beds, and make sure that there's no male there, and make sure that there's no signs of a male being there. And if there is a sign of a male being there, then you will no longer receive services. So they had us, at the very least, trying to create this atmosphere of looking like we weren't there. And then because we were disenfranchised in many ways, that we didn't have support systems for us as men, because of that, it came to a place where we couldn't support that family on our own. We couldn't do the things that we needed to do. We were dealing with high rates of incarceration. We were dealing with high rates of unemployment. We're dealing with all of these issues. And then they're saying, well, we can't support you as an entire family. What we can support is the mother and the children in the absence of the father. So that's where the breakdown started.
See, I think it's different for me. I believe that what actually happened is women started realizing that they didn't need a man, so they could say, you know what, I don't really need you. So, whatever, the government or whatever, the state, whatever local level will take care of me. So guys started saying, well, she don't need me, so whatever, I can just go around and have a bunch of kids and whatever. Someone else will take care of them. And so it takes responsibility off men, which is a horrible place for us to be, because remember, 50, 60 years ago, you got a woman pregnant, you had to marry her.
Yes.
But now it's like, well, I got her pregnant, well, whatever. She'll get some money. She'll get some whatever, some services, something. And so essentially, the government became the father in the relationship.
I believe that to be true, but I think it really goes back to the point where women are feeling like, if the man can't provide for me and the only way that I can receive services for supports is through not having that man there, then I need to keep him out so that I can continue my supports. I don't think it's women just saying I don't need men. It's women saying I don't need men who can't do the things that I need done in my life.
And that's what I'm saying. It allowed men to essentially become bums. Well, in a way.
In a way it did, but it actually marginalized men such to the point that men, didn't feel like they were important, and they probably heard that many times over. And we probably are still dealing with that today. So women are telling men, your father wasn't nothing and you're not going to be anything either.
Which is horrible.
And yes.
Let me take this call. Caller, you're live. Good morning.
Saying your thing on you.
Hello?
Hello?
Good morning. Talk to me.
I don't feel as a woman that what you both are saying is completely accurate. I understand this is like a chicken or the egg scenario, but honestly, I feel like, this all goes back to William Lynch when they was ripped out of our life. And we as women in the community haven't recovered from that. I don't think it's because that, the welfare system is in place to take care of the woman and the child as to why men don't want to be a part of the life of the child or the mother. I don't think that's it. The responsibility lies within the man. That problem was his problem long before they even got together with that woman.
Okay.
This is not something that we said, oh, we don't need you, so come on and get us pregnant and then quickly leave. No, I don't know any woman of color that wants that. We want our men to be
I think that women would be, Carla, I think that women would be more careful if they knew that there wasn't a system or systems in place to help them. I suspect that they would be. I mean, if you know that okay, if I don't have enough money to buy food, I can go, whatever, then you're more likely to lean on that versus
I mean,
because it tends to make people.
Now, any woman, and I know a lot of women,
Mm-hmm.
any women that have had children before they were ready were very young, naive, and they were in love, and they believed that, I didn't think of the future, or they didn't think that far ahead
Mm-hmm.
of themselves to realize that it's going to be a responsibility, and it's going to be a financial responsibility. It was an impulsive, and it was a reckless, I hate to say it, but act. Not to say it's a mistake, because I don't feel like any child in this world is a mistake.
Right.
But it was not thought through on either party.
Mm-hmm.
So in those cases, that has to do with teen pregnancy and all that stuff. That's where you get the welfare system, because no teenage man and no teenage girl are fit to take care of any child financially. They're barely fit to take care of themselves. So the rise in teen pregnancy and the fact that these young men are fathering kids so young is a contributing factor to it. I don't think it's solely because the women are saying, we don't need you all to be accountable, because we need men to be accountable. We need our men to be in the home with the kids, with us. You know what I'm saying? We need that. We need the fathers to step up and do what they need to do. And if you with a woman that has kids and you, that man in the wife, then we need you men to step up, whether it's not your child or not. The thing about it is men themselves as an entity need to be accountable for themselves. You can't push this all back onto the female saying, oh, because we don't need you all, that's why you are behaving like this. That behavior was going on long before.
Gotcha.
We said, we don't need you all. We just got sick of it and said, you know what? If you ain't going to help me anyway, by all means necessary, I'm going to do what I need to do as a responsible woman and a mother to take care of my kids so they're not following
All right. Listen, let me pick it up from there because I got to get back to John. Thank you so much for checking in.
Yep, you too.
All right.
So I do agree with you. I think it has been perpetuated for a very long time, but it's also perpetuated through systems. Mm-hmm. So that Willie Lynch syndrome is still happening today, mm-hmm. where we are looking at each other and questioning each other's character around their ability to be supportive, not understanding that we haven't fixed the broken family. Mm-hmm, and until we fix the broken family, until we hold both men and women both responsible for raising children, not one or the other, but right. both responsible for raising children, we're going to continue to perpetuate this. Okay. We're going to continue to have people who grow up in homes where that support exists, viewing that as the model of how their life should be, as opposed to supporting them to be in a place where they no longer have to have the support of government, but have the support of the community.
And of each other.
And of each other, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about your opinion on the schools and the school department and our children, because correct me if I'm wrong, I think 75 to 80% of students in Boston Public Schools are students of color.
Absolutely,
is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what are your ideas on the school department and the Boston Public Schools?
So I think it's impossible to have a majority of people of color in school, in a school, trying to educate them, and we leave out their history. I think it's important that we teach Black history in school. I think it's also important that we teach civics in school, because if we understood government, we would have much larger turnouts when it comes to voting, because we would understand our political power. But with the schools, I think what we need is strong leadership, and I think we need accountability. Our children are doing better in tests, so they're passing the MCAS test, but they're not being prepared for college in the way that other students are in other districts. It's important that we not only pass a test, but we start to create and close the achievement gap. So although all of our children are doing better, that achievement gap is still exists. And until we get to a place where we start to close the achievement gap, where our children of color are learning the same things, in an environment that's as supportive as their white counterparts, we're going to struggle in our schools.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So not only do we need to teach our children, we need to make sure that there's quality schools everywhere, because there's very few quality schools, and parents are fighting now to send their kids to the ones that are identified as those quality schools.
Right.
And there's all these other ones that are left behind that people are being forced into and don't have any recourse around, well, my child is going to go to this program, my child's going to go to a charter school, I'm going to put my child in Metco. You know, so if we don't do the things that we need to do to support our children, make sure that they have the right education, make sure that we're bringing their families into the schools as well, engaging them as a part of the process, because the children are in school 6 to 8 hours a day. When they go home, they need to be supported too. They still have homework to do. They have those things to do. When I grew up in school, I was taught to do number facts. My daughter came, my youngest daughter, my youngest child, who's a daughter, you know, is 12 years old now. And when she comes home and says, oh, I'm doing these math problems, what's 8 times 8? And I say 64. She says, no, that's not the way you do it. But that's the way that I was taught. You know, there's a formula that they have to do in terms of understanding how.
Are you saying that kids don't learn the multiplication tables anymore?
What?
Like, just so you know it just right off the break like that?
Well, I don't think they're taught to learn it that way. I think what they're taught to do is put it down on paper and say, if I have 8 groups of 8, that brings me to 64. That makes a lot of sense, but that's how the test is geared to. But it doesn't teach them to just be free thinkers, quick thinkers, and things like that. It always requires them to put something down on paper to figure something out. And if we don't teach our children to be free thinkers, if we don't teach our children to do something other than to pass a test, we're setting our children up for failure. Because if you look at all the community colleges and public colleges and private colleges, you'll see that all of them are building curriculums around remedial reading and arithmetic, because our children are passing the MCAS. They are capable of teaching to that test, but they're not functioning at the level that they need to be competitive in college. Okay.
All right. Because, I mean, my wife and I, we're going to start having children soon. And we're having this conversation, you know, and I'm a product of Boston Public Schools. Yes. I mean, for 16 years, 12 years of you know, from first grade all the way up. And, you know, we're having conversations. He's like, well, you know, I don't know about Boston Public Schools. And I'm with this dilemma of, do I send my kids to private school or do I send my kids to Boston Public Schools? So, you know, that's one of the it's a really important issue that touches very close to home for me. I want to talk to you about jobs and job creation in the city. Yeah. What would you do as mayor to create more jobs, especially in our community? Because, I mean, we know that the job rate across the country is down, but in our community, communities of color across the country, not just in Boston, the job rate is horrible.
So we have many opportunities to create jobs. One of the biggest places that we have to do that is in the construction field. So we have billions of dollars of buildings going up in Boston, and we have an ordinance that requires that 50% Boston residents are on those jobs, 25% people of color, and 10% women. And if we met those goals, we would be fine. You know, we could employ many of those people. So we have the Jobs Policy Act around construction that's there. We also have this program, which I'd like to applaud the mayor for, which is the Main Streets program, which really went into communities and said, let's build up the business districts. Let's put a facade on them that really makes the community look better, so that people feel more proud of visiting local businesses to support them.
Right.
People don't feel like they need to go to the malls. People don't feel like they need to go to other cities and towns to have the diverse culture of businesses that exist. The challenge is we build the fronts of the building, but we're not taking the time to really work with the owners to understand, what does it mean to build a business that's going to be sustainable, that we can pass down from generation to generation? And when we start doing, if we start doing that, if we could start building the businesses within our communities, supporting them, providing grants so that they can expand in their business.
Some business training, some bookkeeping, right.
Absolutely.
Basically fertilize the crop so that it grows.
Absolutely. And then in exchange for what we do for them, in exchange for building or helping them build a business that can be sustainable and pass through the generations, we're going to ask them to employ our youth. We're going to ask them to as repayment to employ our youth to make sure that they have jobs in their communities that isn't just about cleaning up the streets, that actually give them some practical experience where they can put something on their resume and say, I have a skill in this.
Okay. Now, in speaking of jobs and things like that, how do you feel about Corey reform? Are you for it? Are you against it? What do you think about it? I mean, because it disproportionately affects, obviously, again, our neighborhood. So what do you think?
So, again, working in social services, I know that labels are put on many people, and Corey is one of those labels. And when we put labels on people, it gives us a reason to exclude them. It gives us a reason to say, well, they're not qualified because they're bad parents. They're not qualified because they have a history of crime. What it doesn't speak to is the ability within us, inherently within us as people, to change, to grow. And if we only judge people by a circumstance in their life that brought them, into a negative experience, then we don't have a positive outlook on who people are and that ability to grow. And I think so we need to give everyone an opportunity to work. We need to create environments where people can be employed, maybe not in the area in which that crime existed.
Right.
So if they're robbing people, don't put them around money. Don't put them in the temptation. But also put them in a place where they have the ability to say, I can do this, that I have some value. Because as long as we don't employ them, as long as we put them in a place where they don't feel like they're empowered to be successful on their own, they're going to continue to do those things to be able to provide for their families. So it's important that we support everyone and make sure that the job's accessible for everyone.
Okay.
Especially and including those that have Corys.
Gotcha. Carly, alive. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to call and ask a question. I have a bad cold. I wanted to ask the gentleman a question. And my question is, what about training programs for people that are unemployable?
You said training programs for people that don't have any skill sets and things like that?
Right, exactly. Because we can't just take people out of certain situations and throw them right in a job. They need to be trained for that skill.
So many years ago, there were high schools that specialized in programs like that, and those high schools have all, disappeared. Also, I remember maybe 2 years ago, Governor Deval Patrick said that there were like 200,000 jobs available in Massachusetts that employers could not find qualified people to do.
And that's why I'm asking the question.
And so I think it's important that we start to rebuild those schools. The governor's plan was to support community colleges to provide those trainings. And I support the governor in that effort. I think we need to create the opportunities for these people to learn skills that will make them employable, and also make sure that they have the ability to sustain themselves and their families.
And what about young mothers that have children that are employable?
So I think when we're having that conversation, we're talking about everyone. We're not just talking about men. We're talking about everyone needs to be able to have the skills built to do the work. Now, are you speaking about creating opportunities for daycare for mothers Daycare is a huge issue because a lot of that money comes from the state and federal. It's not really local dollars that are set up to provide those services. So being in a place where those slots are available are very important. We do need to make sure, and with the Department of Education, they do have a priority population, which is young parents. So young mothers and fathers, if they're looking to be employed, if they're looking to go to school, they are a priority population and would be the first to receive, as long as slots are available, would be the first to receive those slots.
I also think a lot about young men and young women that are incarcerated, and I think that in order for them to stay out of the prison systems, that they should open up more than Everest or some other place that they can go to and start from the bottom and work themselves to the top.
So the best.
But a lot of people tell me that when they go to apply for a certain situation and they've been in prison, that they're turned down.
Yeah. So it's important for us when our young, well, actually not just young, when anyone is in prison and they're going to be coming home, it's important for us from the day that they go in to prepare them to come out. And a lot of that has to do with going in, having conversations with them, making sure that they're connected to their families and communities. Because as long
you mean
as,
while they're still in?
While they're still in. Because as long as they don't have that connection to family, as long as they're not connected to community, then the chances for them for being successful are very limited. The rates of recidivism, where people go back into prison, are very high when we don't take the proper steps to prepare them to come out. So if there's not a job available for them, if there's not a connection to a family or community, and family and community could be a church. And I know many churches have programs where they go into prisons and work with the men. But again, it's feeling connected to that church. It's feeling like you're a part of that church. It's feeling like you're a part of a community and a family that makes them more successful.
All right, Carla, we're gonna take some more calls. I need to ask John some more questions. Thank you for checking in. Have a great morning.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
So what do you think about how city halls run currently? I mean, how would you change that? What things do you like that the mayor has done? What would you do differently in terms of handling different situations, in terms of actual city services?
Yeah. So I think the mayor has done a masterful job around building this network of a machine that really works to do the work that he wants it to do. He's a political powerhouse, and in that respect, I think he has built something that's very strong and has been very sustainable. For me, in the work that I do, it's all around engaging families. It's around engaging community. So for me, I think the approach would be not saying that I know everything. That
Really?
That as much as I want to be involved in many things, that I'm going to have to bring people in that I can trust and rely on to do the job that I hired them to do. And so for me, my approach would be finding people who have the fundamental philosophy that the best way that we serve people is to have conversations with them, to have them be a part of the process. So for me, the way that I would change government is government would be local. We would have town halls all of the time just to make sure that people felt like they had a voice. People don't come out and vote. People don't come out and participate in things because they really truly feel like their voice doesn't matter. And until you go to them and talk to them and realize that they're real people with real situations and not just addressing people who are those voters.
When you treat them like they're actual constituents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many decisions are made around how things should be when they get leaders in the community together to make those decisions. But the leaders in the communities aren't always speaking on behalf of everyone in the communities.
Right.
So it's important to bring those people to the table. One of the things that I've done with the Department of Children and Families is I chair the Family Advisory Committee, which is a group of people from across the state that come together that have experienced systems before, that now when we're thinking about creating policies and practices, we as community members come together and say, yeah, I think that'll work, or no, in my experience, that wasn't helpful to me. Maybe you should think about it this way. Then when you're creating these policies and practices, you actually have the opportunity to almost get it right the first time. That you're not rebuilding it year after year after year because it's not meeting the needs of the people. And that's how we become successful as a city. That's how we become more world class than we are. I would never suggest that we're not a world class city and that the mayor didn't do many wonderful things. But there are opportunities for us to grow. There are opportunities for us to grow in our education. There's opportunities for us to grow in our outreach to the communities. There's opportunities for us to make sure that we engage in a process that fundamentally believes that all people have the right to be served by government, and government doesn't exclude people just because of their circumstance.
Okay. All right. Now, I know a lot of people have called up and spoke about the price of rent going up. I mean, rent just, I mean, in the thing with when you have a world-class city like Boston is, and you have the amount of schools that you have in these neighborhoods, rents,
and hospitals,
and hospitals, right? Rents tend to go up because students will, pay whatever. But that's one of the issues that I've had people speak to me about, and I was wondering, did you have any plan for that in terms of trying to? I mean, obviously, rent control, is just not going to work, but. How can you? Is there something that you could offer or could have some ideas on that?
So again, a lot of the buildings that are going up in Boston have a lot to do with housing. Yes, they're commercial areas that we're building up, but a lot of it has to do with housing. And it's important that we build affordable and low-income housing. Boston is a world-class city, but Boston won't maintain its world-class city if we eliminate its diversity.
Okay.
And by raising rents, by making Boston unaffordable for all families, it's going to make it impossible for people like you and I, people of color. I mean, some of them are very successful. Some of us are very successful. Maybe we own our homes now. Maybe we're going to be okay. But for the dream that other people have of owning homes, it'll never happen if we don't create these opportunities for home ownership. And then I'll go back to that process of engaging community, like I said before. We have this thing called eminent domain, where government can come in and take away your home because of their plans or projects around building the community. Government tends to say that there's a community process that's involved in making those decisions.
Right.
But let's take Dudley Street as an example. So we have all this housing on Dudley Street, and the city and agencies within the city takes these properties by eminent domain, and there's a community process to do such. But if there are 1,000 people living in those buildings, what was the conversation with those 1,000 people? Not with 20 of them that were,
Who ones that sit on the board, right, tenant association.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the conversation with the other 980 of them that said, when we displace you, that you will never come back to this community because we're only building back a portion of that housing that's going to exist. So we're actually participating, as a community in this process of gentrifying the neighborhoods and making them so that we're not as diverse as we should be, and making and getting us to a place where we could see the South End, Roxbury, all the changes that have happened throughout the years in terms of what the streets look like. And I would tend to say that it is a very intentional process.
Oh yeah.
To change the landscape of the way this city looks. So it's important for all of us in the communities to stand up and say we need access to housing. We need access to affordable housing. When we're building these things, there has to be a long-term plan to ensure that all people of many different races and class, social class, have the ability to live within this city.
Okay. All right. I want to, in closing out, because we getting ready to go to break and we got to wrap up. Tell me why people, tell our listening audience why they should vote for you. What do you stand for? What do you give me your whole spiel, if you will.
Yeah, well, I think people should vote for me because I have a different approach. One of the things that I've been very clear with saying is I'm about people and not about the politics. And I understand that elections and being the mayor is very political, and that you have to be aware of those things. But but mayors are elected by people,
right?
And if you can reach the people and make sure that their needs are met, that we are doing the things that we want to do, making sure our children are educated, making sure our families are whole, making sure that people feel safe in their communities, making sure that people have a process in which police are walking the streets and people have an opportunity to know them, making sure that they have the opportunities to live within a community and feel like they have a voice, then you're going to want to vote for me because I'm that person who is looking for collaborations. My work within state government has been around not only building the agency that I sit on their senior staff, but because of my role as a community representative, I've been able to access other agencies and try to help them change the culture of their agencies, DOR, DYS, the court systems. And it's that collaboration, the ability to collaborate and the ability to change cultures that's really going to get us to a place where we need to be.
Okay.
Anyone can make a promise and tell you in philosophy that this is what they want to do. But how many people have participated in a process to actually change that culture?
Wow.
And I have.
Okay. So give the people your information, your Twitter, Facebook, website, telephone number, address. No.
So you can reach me on Facebook at John Laing for Mayor.
Tell them how to spell Laing because people may not know.
Laing, and it's JOHN John. My website is johnlangformayor.com. And I invite everyone to take a look at the website. I invite everyone to friend me on Facebook. And I look forward to actually engaging people in conversations. One of my challenges is, as I've been walking around in this signature process, is when I start to engage people in conversations and they ask me more, I've been telling my campaign manager, MC Spice, that I'm spending an hour and a half, 2 hours with everybody because I think it's important to really have these conversations.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I have a plan, but my plan has to be representative of the people that I plan on serving. And so it's important for me to engage in those conversations. And I look forward to having the opportunity to reach out to everyone, as many people as I can, and have those conversations.
Real quick, before you leave, I want to ask you one more question I forgot to ask you earlier. I apologize. The casinos, we'll go over that. The casino that they're talking about building in East Boston, what's your opinion on that? What do you think about that? Because the conversation is just being had in East Boston.
So I would really have to leave that to a process where we engage community and see what the community thought was best. I think if it could create jobs, that it would be important for us to do, especially in a community that has a low employment rate, and it would create jobs from other communities. There's also the downside of, having something so close in a population of people that are so hopeful, that, it's an opportunity to, live their life dream, but in the process, lose everything.
Bet it all on black and lose. Right.
So I think that's one of those areas where I would like to have a process that I really understood the issue to its fullest and could make an educated decision about what would be best for Boston.
Okay. All right. That's what's up. Now, you have an event coming up.
Yes. So the event is Father Family Fun Day. It's the 4th year that we've done this event. It happens at Harambe Park, which is at the corner of Talbot and Blue Hill Ave. And this is just one of the ways that I can demonstrate my ability to collaborate. Last year, we had about 1,200 people show up, fathers and families show up to receive services from 44 different state, local, and community service agencies that said, we understand that there's an issue around fathers not feeling supported, that the state doesn't necessarily, or communities don't necessarily have a proper support systems for fathers. We want to engage the families in a process that better understands how we support them to be a part of their families. And so if you have any issues with Department of Revenue, any issues with DCF, any issues around, around the Department of Corrections or the courts, there'll be representatives from most of those agencies at the park that day that you'll be able to, for the very first time, approach and be able to tell your story and how they might be able to help you in the future.
Okay.
So come out. It's June 8th from 12 to 4 at Harambe Park, Father's Family Fun Day.
And this is, Harambe Park is at the corner of Talbot. It's Franklin Field, essentially.
It was renamed Harambe Park a long time ago, so
Right.
it's Franklin Field, but yes.
Okay. All right, John, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this time with us.
Yes,
and
thank
good
you for
luck.
having me.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I hope you do well, and I'll put it on the usually our intern Taylor's here and she posts the stuff on Facebook, but I'll do that in once you and just tell people the website and stuff like that. And you said it's johnlang4mayor.com. Okay.
Yes, thank you, sir.
No problem. All right, we're going to break and we'll be back. Good Life Morning Show, a Big City 101.3 FM.
I have it on in my office all day long. Keeps me awake.